His hands shake. The tears are real. After decades of silence, an Apollo astronaut breaks down and says what NASA always denied. Before setting foot on the moon, Mission Control told them the truth. This was not a lifeless rock. The entire landing was scripted to cover up what they actually found. Something built, something waiting. Seismic readings rang like a gong, and every official reaction was rehearsed. What did they see up there that humanity is not allowed to know? This confession is just the first crack. What comes next could change everything you think about our place in the universe. The camera rolls. The old man's hands tremble as he fumbles out his battered NASA ID, the faded photo barely clinging to the plastic. His voice is raw, cracking, desperate. This is not some internet hoax or a TikTok prank. The file stamped across the bottom corner reads, Apollo Testimony, May 12, 1994. In the metadata, a cold string of numbers, ASHA 256, hash starting with 9F3A. The real deal, while locked down tight for decades. He tries to steady himself, but the tears just come harder. They told us before launch, he chokes out. They told us the moon is not what it looks like. We were just actors in a show. The real script, the one nobody saw, was buried in the mission files. He is not reading from a prepared statement. His words tumble out, jagged and unfinished. Mission Control warned them they would see things they could not talk about, and they would hear things they would never repeat. I thought they were just spooking us, he remembers. But when that lander touched down and the ground started to shake, he buries his face in his hands. It rang. The whole moon rang. Not like a rock, like metal, like a bell. I knew then. We all knew. This was built, not born. He looks up, eyes rimmed red, and holds up a signed NASA release form. They made us sign everything, he says. They swore us to silence. But I can't do it anymore. People have to know. The file's digital fingerprint flashes on screen, proof that what you are hearing is not a rumor. This is a confession with a chain of custody, locked in a vault for 30 years, now pried open for everyone to see. The astronaut's breakdown is not just emotion. It is the sound of a lifetime of secrets finally breaking loose. And with every word, the wall between what we have been told and what is really out there starts to crumble. November 24th, 1969. Apollo 12's seismic experiment package is bolted to the lunar surface, sensors armed, every twitch of the ground recorded down to the millisecond. At 16:03 UTC, the lunar module's ascent stage slams into the moon with the force of a freight train. The data file, ALSEP PDS AL12 SEIS ring 001 captures a shockwave that should have faded in minutes. Instead, the moon starts ringing. Not a quick shudder, but a rolling, metallic hum that echoes for nearly an hour, over 3,500 seconds. The main frequency, right at 0.5 Hertz, pulses like the deep note of some giant bell. Seismologists stare at the spectrogram. The lines are clean, almost harmonic, refusing to die out. On Earth, a quake's energy gets swallowed up by water, by shifting rock, by life itself. But here, the signal just keeps bouncing, as if there is nothing inside to absorb it. One expert, handed the raw waveform, mutters under his breath, "That's not natural, that's engineered." The decay constant, how long it takes the vibration to fade, is off the charts. Instead of dropping off fast, the numbers show a slow, stubborn decline, as if the energy is trapped, ricocheting inside a hollow shell. The official report tries to downplay it, blaming dry lunar dirt, but the ALSEP file does not lie. The moon rang like a cathedral bell struck by a sledgehammer, and every second that ringing lasted, the story of a dead, solid rock died with it. What's hiding under the dust? Metal? Caverns? A shell built by hands not our own? The data leaves one answer. The moon is not a rock. It is a machine, and someone wants us to think otherwise. Catalog entry 12,035. That is the number buried in a NASA logbook, filed away like it is nothing. But this rock, scooped from the ocean of storms by Apollo hands, is not just another chunk of lunar dirt. It is the smoking gun. The official lab report, IDLA-001, stamped and signed by a NASA curator, lists the chemistry. Titanium at 14 weight percent. Not traces, not a sprinkle. More than what you find in the armor of a Cold War submarine. Titanium. That pure is not just rare in nature, it screams engineering. The paperwork tells a story no press conference ever mentioned. The sample's surface is fused, almost glassy, with a metallic sheen that should not exist on a world cooked by the sun and bombarded by micrometeorites. When outside labs ran ICP-MS scans, high-precision tests that rip atoms apart to read their DNA, their numbers did not just match NASA's baseline, they blew right past it. No volcanic process, no cosmic ray, no ancient lava flow on Earth or Mars leaves behind this kind of armor plating. The only place you see titanium at these levels is in jet turbines, spacecraft hulls, or the heat shields of classified military tech. And it is not just titanium. The report flags trace vanadium, chromium, and nickel, classic signatures of high-performance alloys. This is not the recipe for a moon rock. It is a formula for a shell, built to take a beating. The curator who cataloged it never spoke on camera again. The lab's notes stopped cold after the anomaly, but the evidence is right there, locked in the sample vault. The moon is not covered in dust. It is armored, layered in engineered metal, hiding something beneath. And every gram of that impossible alloy is a slap in the face to everything we have been told about what is really up there. Copernicus Crater, the so-called Jewel of the Moon. Astronomers brag about its size, 93 kilometers across, a cosmic scar punched by an asteroid the size of a city. But here is the number NASA does not want you to hear. DEPEF. Not the pretty pictures, not the artist renditions. The real cross-section, straight from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter's digital elevation model, LRO-DEM-0001973. Official measurement, 2.7 kilometers deep. That's it. Less than the distance from Times Square to Central Park. Now, run the math. The gold standard formula for impact craters, the pi group scaling law, predicts a hole almost twice as deep. For Copernicus, the math screams 4.8 kilometers. That is what you get when you slam a rock into solid ground. No tricks, no hidden layers. But the moon does not play by those rules. It is like every asteroid slams into a wall and pancakes out. The floor hits back. The crater is too shallow, the walls too crisp, the base almost flat. Not the ragged pit you see on Mars or Mercury. Something is stopping the violence cold, right below the surface. A planetary geophysicist, handed the DEM cross-section and the scaling law, does not mince words. If these numbers are real, you are looking at a shell. A rigid layer, not just dirt and rock. Think about it. Titanium armor in the rocks. Shallow craters that refuse to dig deep. The math and the images line up. There is a barrier under that dust, and it is not natural. The moon has been armored, protected, built to take a pounding and keep its secrets locked away. And every crater that fails to break through is another piece of the puzzle. The surface is not just tough, it is engineered. And whatever is underneath, NASA is not talking. July 20th, 1969. The whole world is glued to the TV, breath held, as Armstrong and Aldrin bounce down the ladder. But at exactly 2:13:45 UTC, the broadcast cuts. 2 full minutes gone. No static, no explanation, just dead air. NASA blames a technical glitch. But buried in a leaked file, stamped confidential, sits a transcript labeled Medical Channel, Apollo 11, 2:14 UTC. This is not the sanitized chatter everyone has heard. The lines are clipped, voices typed. A whisper says, "They are here, on the ridge, enormous, watching us." Heartbeats thump in the background. Another voice, calm but with an edge, says, "Switch to the private loop. Houston, do you copy?" For years, skeptics called it a hoax. Then a forensic audio analyst gets hold of the raw tapes. He runs a voice print match. Every vowel, every stutter. The patterns are a dead-on match for Armstrong and Aldrin. The analyst's report, signed and dated, lands in a locked file cabinet and never sees daylight. Until now. The official NASA logs gloss over the gap, but the time codes do not lie. From 2:13:45 UTC to 2:15:45 UTC, the world heard nothing. On the Medical Channel, something else played out. The analyst's summary is blunt. Voices are authentic. Channel was live. Content is unexplainable. No static, no interference. Just two men on a dead world, suddenly not alone. The cover story is airtight, unless you know where to look. The missing 2 minutes are not just a glitch. They are a firewall. A real-time scramble to keep the biggest secret in human history off the air. And every second of silence is a clue that the moon is watching back. Forget everything you learned in school about the moon just being a lucky rock floating by. Here is the number NASA never wants on a t-shirt, 400 to 1. That is the ratio that locks the moon and sun together in the sky, so perfectly, you get total solar eclipses where the moon covers the sun like a sniper's crosshair. The sun is about 400 times bigger than the moon, but it is also 400 times farther away. That is why, from Earth, they look the same size, down to the last decimal. Not close, not almost. Practically pixel perfect. Official figures. The moon's apparent diameter clocks in at 0.52 degrees. The sun is 0.53 degrees. That is a difference so small, you would need a microscope to spot it. Now, here's where it gets wild. A worksheet from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, ECL 400, stamped and filed, lays out the math. Plug in the numbers. Moon diameter, 3,474 kilometers. Average distance to Earth, 384,400 kilometers. Sun diameter, 1.39 million kilometers. Distance to the Sun, 149.6 million kilometers. Run the small angle formula and you get a match so tight, it is like someone set the dials by hand. An astronomer writing in the margin writes that this ratio is unique in the solar system. Not Mars, not Venus, not anywhere else. Only here. What are the odds? Billions to 1. The moon is drifting away from Earth by almost 4 centimeters per year. In a few million years, total eclipses will be history. But right now, at this exact moment in human civilization, the moon and sun line up with the precision of a cosmic machine. That is not a fluke. That is design. Someone parked the moon right where it had to be, not for beauty, but for a reason. And every eclipse is a billboard screaming, the moon is not an accident. It is a message, written in math, impossible to ignore. 1970, Moscow. Not a NASA memo, not a backroom whisper. This time, the bomb drops in print. 2 Soviet scientists, Vasin and Shcherbakov, publish a paper in the journal Sputnik, volume 12, page 23. Their credentials are not fringe. Vasin is a physicist. Shcherbakov is an engineer at the USSR Academy of Sciences. Their hypothesis is shocking. The moon is not just odd, it is a hollowed-out, armored spaceship parked in orbit by an unknown intelligence. No translation errors here. A certified linguist combed through every line, word for word. The English version, stamped and signed, matches the Russian original down to the punctuation. They point to the same seismic ringing, the same impossible titanium armor, and the same shallow craters that keep bouncing cosmic wrecking balls off a hidden shell. The Soviets do not hedge. They call it an ancient cosmic ship and ask straight out who built it and why it is watching us. This is not Cold War paranoia. It is global. The moon's secret is not just an American problem, it is the world's. And with this paper, the cover-up cracks open on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Frame ID LRO NS 0003456789. That is the number burned into the header, straight from NASA's own Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter database. The metadata is all there: coordinated universal time timestamp, instrument serial, attitude, even the checksum. No Photoshop, no TikTok filters. Just raw data. Now look at the image. Zoom in. There, on the far side, right where nobody on Earth can see, a shadow slices across the regolith. Impossibly straight, impossibly tall. The annotation in the file reads vertical anomaly, approximately 1.8 kilometers in height. That is not a typo. That is a tower, twice the height of the Burj Khalifa, casting a shadow that runs for miles. The archivist who flagged it, name redacted, left an internal note in the log. Structure persists across orbits, not an artifact. The shadow analysis is brutal. The sun angle was 33 degrees. The measured shadow length was 3.2 kilometers. You do not get geometry like that from a pile of rocks. The telemetry backs it up. Altitude, roll, pitch, every number lines up. Frame after frame, orbit after orbit, the structure does not move, does not fade. It is not a glitch. It is not a trick of the light. It is something built, standing alone on the far side, right where no one was supposed to look. NASA's public catalog labels it as isolated mound, but the file tells a different story. The tower is real. The evidence is in the image, the numbers, the shadow. And someone at NASA knew it did not belong. January 5th, 1972, a memo landed on the NASA administrator's desk. It carried the label OMBA 2571, and it was signed and sealed by the Office of Management and Budget. The language was cold, clinical, and final. In one stroke, the heart of the Apollo program was carved out. Missions 18, 19, and 20 were scrubbed. Within 72 hours, the mission schedule was wiped clean. Rockets already built were reassigned to Skylab. The Saturn V assembly line, the most powerful machine ever made, was shut down for good. The memo's metadata told the story. Authorization from the highest level, with no room for appeal. The cancellation chart was brutal. Missions vanished off the timeline as if they had never existed. There was no public debate, no astronaut press tour. It was a bureaucratic bullet to the head. The signatory's name was stamped at the bottom, initials tight and deliberate, but the real message was in the dates. The shutdown order came days after the last batch of far-side images and seismic data were logged, right as the evidence piled up that the moon is not what we have been told. The program did not wind down. It slammed to a halt. Files were closed, doors were locked, and the world was told to look away. The final warning was not whispered by an astronaut. It was written in the ink of a government memo, and it lived in the silence that followed. Right now, every telescope on Earth points at a cold metal shell. Someone else's fortress is parked in our sky. NASA's silence is not just a cover-up. It is a warning. The moon is not a rock. It is a threat. And as long as it hangs above us, humanity lives under another power's shadow. Who owns our sky? DC? And what happens if we try to take it back? Drop your thoughts below.